Hi guys, welcome to Office Blokes React. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
Together we are the Office Blokes.
We are indeed.
Yeah.
The first living Office Blokes.
Mike. Mike was.
He was a vampire, isn't he? So he's neither alive nor dead. Yeah. Just stuck somewhere in between. We're going to be starting. We're going to be starting a new monthly segment very soon, where we're going to bring back Office Blokes Confidential to a degree, and we're also going to do Ask Us Anything and just any other cool ideas. It'll be like a 1 episode per month sort of job. But if you want to ask us anything, or if you want our advice with an Office Blokes Confidential, email it in, DM it, whatever you want to do.
Yep.
For the beginning, we're going to prioritise channel members and patrons, but that doesn't mean we're not going to do other people's advice and questions and
that
stuff
thing
as
is,
well.
if you've got a serious issue you want the Office Blokes to address because you think, you know what, I've got like, I don't know,
Crabs.
3 ears growing on my ball sack, right? And someone says, I want the Office Blokes to address that, and tell me what we do, and you think for £1.50, right? How much was it, Mike?
£1.50.
For £1.50, they can get that access to that.
Get straight to the front of the queue to find out what to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Keep your eye out for that though. It's going to be a monthly thing. We're going to do it
your ear.
Premieres every month. But yeah, anyway, keep your eye out. Right then, first living Medal of Honor recipient, Delta Force.
How old is this then?
Right, okay.
I don't know how old the video is. It looks like Arabic, right? It looks like IS flags, doesn't it? Or ISIS.
Are they usually given out when they get killed in action or something? Or
I think quite a lot of the time it is someone who's died to save other people.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's saying the first living, obviously they must have given quite a few out, I would guess, over the years. So
that's why I was asking. I wasn't sure. Is it something they only give out?
It might be the first Delta Force person to get one.
Oh,
because didn't the
guy who was the Johnny Rambo type guy?
Yeah, the one that went in with just a dagger and got shot 50 times and saved like 30.
He died. He put him in a body bag and he got out.
Yeah, he spat in someone's face when he was getting zipped up. Didn't he get one?
Not finished yet.
Yeah,
I think he may have got one.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So maybe it's the first Delta Force person to get one.
Yeah, okay.
We'll find out by watching the video.
Yeah.
Let's do it. First living Medal of Honor recipient, Delta Force.
In the early morning of October 22nd, 2015, Thomas Paine and his team stormed a prison in Iraq. Their target were 2 multi-story buildings holding over 70 hostages facing execution. Just as the special forces were engaged in a fierce firefight with the insurgents, the building suddenly caught fire while the hostages were still trapped inside. Time to free all the civilians unharmed was running out at a rapid pace. For what happened next, Thomas Paine would receive the Medal of Honor, America's highest military award. Paine was a motivated and very experienced Delta Force soldier with more than 13 years of service. In 2012, he had even won the Best Ranger competition, an annual 62-hour selection in which only 2 soldiers emerged victorious. In the process, Paine didn't let his severe shrapnel injury, suffered 2 years earlier during a deployment to Afghanistan, slow him down in any way. He deployed to every trouble spot in the world a total of 17 times to demonstrate his skills on special operations.
Wow.
Paine's numerous trainings included a sniper course, as well as the Jump Master and Tandem Master qualifications, which means that he can carry another person who has never skydived before when free-falling. On his current deployment, Paine was in northern Iraq as a deputy team leader to assist in the fight against the so-called Islamic State, which had captured large parts of the country.
Yes, it has.
You know you're a badass when everyone else's faces are blurred out whenever they show a picture of you.
What was you saying?
I thought Dave was going to say their eyes look a bit funny.
I'm not taking a mickey out of these guys. They'll come for me.
Absolutely not, no.
Proper badasses Delta Force, aren't they?
Yeah, of course they are.
On October 22nd, 2015, Paine's team was tasked with freeing more than 70 Iraqi hostages held in the northern city of Al-Havija. The Special Forces had spent an entire week planning the mission and preparing for any contingencies they might face. When new reconnaissance images suddenly showed freshly dug graves outside the prison, it became clear that the hostages could soon be executed. As a result, the task force was given the green light for the mission, and the operators, along with their Kurdish partner forces, boarded several helicopters, which took off toward the IS stronghold shortly thereafter. The Kurdish forces consisted of a unit simply known as the Counterterrorism Group, or CTG, which is part of the Peshmerga and has worked with Americans in the past. Just before dawn, the Chinooks touched ground again and the special forces rushed through the stirred-up sand toward the prison. After the Kurdish counterterrorism unit unsuccessfully attempted to blast an entrance through the prison wall, the Americans used ladders to climb over. While climbing over the prison wall, however, they came under heavy fire, seriously wounding Delta Force soldier Joshua Wheeler. Once on the other side, dust and smoke made it nearly impossible to see. Relying on his training, Payne led his team to the first building, where his medic left to help tend to the wounded man. The Kurdish troops were initially reluctant to move forward, but Payne and his comrades motivated them to advance despite the adverse conditions. On his orders, they successfully secured the building where the first 38 hostages were being held, encountering only light resistance. As they broke the lock on the prison door, Payne could see the expression on the hostages' faces change from fear and despair to excitement and joy. With the tension gone, some of them even began to cry. But for the special forces, the job was far from over. While the team was escorting the civilians outside, Payne received an alarming radio message. His comrades at the second building were making less progress and needed urgent help. The enemy had barricaded themselves and was resisting against the special forces with everything from grenades to suicide bombers. Payne could hear the noise of the battle all the way to his position and knew he had to act quickly. Saying, "Let's get in the fight," he led his men through the enemy gunfire to the hot zone. Arriving at the second building, he and a teammate climbed to the roof to engage the entrenched insurgents from above. From here, the team leader hoped to break the enemy's resistance, allowing the second team to advance. As the soldiers fought from the roof, they continued to take fire, not only from the enemy below, but also from the area around the prison. On top of that, the numerous explosions had set the building on fire. The flames spread to the upper floor, and some rooms were already filled with thick, dark smoke, causing the trapped hostages to run out of time. The risk of dying from smoke inhalation, or even being burned alive, increased with each passing minute. After Kurdish and American special forces made several attempts to establish fire superiority and storm the building, they were finally able to push forward, suffering heavy casualties. Payne climbed down to the first floor again, glanced at the prisoner's door, and realized it was secured with the same thick lock as in the first building. The battle for the hostages was still raging, and Payne was aware that to rescue them, he would have to expose himself not only to enemy fire, but also to the toxic smoke that filled the hallway. He had only a few seconds left to make a decision about the fate of the prisoners. He then grabbed a bolt cutter and, despite the enemy gunfire, ran to the steel door where he cut the first lock. The hot air and smoke were unbearable, so he had to go back immediately to take a breath. But there was a second lock blocking the door, and the hostages were still trapped. The Kurdish forces tried to open the lock themselves, but to no avail, so Payne again rushed into the inferno and broke the second lock as well. The combined forces then cleared each room to eliminate possible threats and free all the hostages. At that moment, a second message came in over the radio. The building was too badly damaged and was already beginning to collapse. All forces were ordered to evacuate, but Payne knew there were still hostages inside. Therefore, he voluntarily went back into the building and ran through the hallway despite the raging fire as well as the unclear enemy situation. Many of the hostages were confused and did not know what was going on, but Payne got them all outside. He then returned to the building 2 more times to make sure that no one had been left behind. Only when all people were safe, he left the hostile place and reported to his team leader that they were now ready to evacuate. When the special forces left the building complex, there were still enemies nearby, so they took the hostages in their midst and walked like a human shield to the right and left of them. However, the civilians were so traumatized that they would reflexively stop every time the soldiers opened fire, which delayed the evacuation. Therefore, the special forces decided to cease their own covering fire, exposing themselves to greater danger so that the hostages would no longer be frightened and keep running. After the group finally arrived at the helicopters, Payne faced another problem. Because they had freed so many hostages, it was unclear whether the helicopters could handle all the extra load. After some quick calculations, they were able to get everyone on board, but it was so cramped that the soldiers had to spend the entire flight standing up. In total, 75 hostages were freed, 20 IS fighters were killed, and 5 others were detained. The hostages, Payne's strike team, and Kurdish partner forces returned to Erbil without incident. They had participated in one of the largest hostage rescues in Special Forces history. For his actions that day, Payne was awarded the Medal of Honor in September 2020. He is the first Delta Force member to receive this special award, still being alive. The first 2 medals have been awarded posthumously to the snipers Shugart and Gordon for their actions at the Battle of Mogadishu in 1993. Unfortunately, Joshua Wheeler, who had been hit during the assault on the prison, succumbed to his wounds. He had led his team relentlessly against the enemy forces to support his comrades from the other squad. When Wheeler was hit, he was at the head of his men. For the courageous action regardless of enemy fire, he was posthumously awarded the Silver Star. A brotherhood that no one else could ever understand.
Yeah, you've got to be a certain breed, haven't you, to do all what these guys do. So heroic.
Yeah.
For what they do. Any military that's like that.
Any situation, they just go into it, don't they? No questions asked. They just get on with it and do the job. Absolutely amazing.
They're the ones that should be the highest paid.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, employees and the governments and stuff like that. It's,
absolutely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and they saved 75 people's lives there. Yeah. 75. I mean,
lost one.
Yeah, because they would have been literally killed, wouldn't they? They would have been executed by the sound of it. So,
what do you think the nature of the hostages were? Do you think because IS were just ISIS, they were just locking up anyone, weren't they?
Yeah, they're going against people who didn't believe in their ideology, wasn't they?
Like, is it because were the Kurds, were they sort of Kurdish Iraqis?
It could have been Kurdish, yeah.
So it's right at the border. Alluded to it earlier on.
Well, Erbil around there is what they call Kurdistan. It's unofficial, but it's Kurdistan.
Yeah, it's sort of like their own sort of
Erbil's nice,
enclave, isn't it?
I don't know what it's like. I've not been for a few years, but when I went, it was a beautiful city. Yeah, really nice. But it's you get it's all religious, isn't it? With the Kurds and the
that's right.
Yeah, I suppose IS and ISIS were just trying to. They'd wanted it to be exactly the way they wanted everything, wasn't it? In any resistance from anyone.
I think the Kurds just want their own sort of like autonomy, don't they? I think it's the same with it's a sort of Turkish Kurds as well.
Turkish Kurds,
same sort of region,
same area.
So they want like the same autonomous region, don't they?
It's like a mountainous border area.
Yeah, I think
it's Kurdistan.
Sort of trouble there for a long time, I think, hasn't there? But
these guys are just absolute badasses, though, aren't they? Like next level,
absolutely incredible. I mean, just the bravery is absolutely unbelievable.
Very well trained, and they go on to then very well train the next generation, and they go on to train them, and it goes on and on and on, and it just keeps improving all the time.
Absolutely.
With modern technology, modern warfare, all that kind of stuff they've
just
got.
Ahead of the game all the time, aren't they? Just really the pinnacle of military power.
They commit their life to it.
Yeah.
And some of them obviously, some of them lose their life when they're in when they're working.
I hope they get looked after afterwards, because there's a lot of stories of veterans not being very well looked after.
It's been like that for years, hasn't it? Especially I think after Vietnam, I think a lot of them were ignored, weren't they? And it was like really tough for them. So you'd like to think things are different these days, and
we don't over here.
There's a huge number of homeless veterans in America, something like 400,000. Like some ridiculous number.
Disgrace, isn't it?
Yeah, and you think they're the people who've fought for the country more than anything. Forget the politics of what they're doing wherever they are. They're fighting for their family and the country.
They're fighting to protect us.
Yeah, precisely. Need to be looked after.
Yeah, they do. I agree. Anyway.
Yeah.
Good that. Hope you guys enjoyed that too. Don't forget, like and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.